Hi, folks. My name is John Findlay. I'm one of the founders of Launchfire. First off, I want to say thanks to everybody for joining our webinar, Gamify Your Training. A little bit about Launchfire. We're a digital engagement shop that focuses on gamified experiences. So on one side, we build consumer promos as well as employee training programs, and specifically we'll talk about those and how to gamify them today. I also wanted to mention that if you have any questions, please feel free to message them over to me, and I'll do my best to make sure they all get answered in the time we have remaining at the end of the presentation. So I guess we'll get started. So in getting ready for today's presentation, I Googled the word gamification because we've been creating these programs since '99, so before gamification was a buzzword. So I wanted to check out what the pundits were saying these days. Came up with these definitions. First of all, the use of game thinking and game mechanics to engage users in solving problems. I don't necessarily think gamification has to be about solving problems. And so the next one, the application of game-playing elements to other activities typically is an online marketing technique. Well, definitely don't think gamification is exclusive to online marketing. And then they had the application of game theory and concepts and techniques to non-game activities. That one's quite a bit closer to what I would think is the right definition, although it's a little dry. So I added my own, turning an activity into a game to make it fun. And I think that really captures the essence of gamification. Give you a couple of sort of pedestrian examples of gamification. My son Jackson, 6-year-old, he loves Lego, but he's not much of a cleaner-upper. So we put the Lego box across the living room, and we stand behind a line and throw the Lego pieces in and count how many in a row we get, and it makes it a bit of a game, see who can get the most in a row. And that's got Jackson sufficiently enthusiastic about putting away his Lego that he actually empties the box a couple of times when we clean up. We clean up multiple times. Not sure if it's actually working for me then. Then my daughter Megan is learning to read. She's a bit of a reluctant reader. She doesn't figure it's a skill she's going to need over the long term. So what I've done is I write down phrases on 5 phrases on a piece of paper, and if she reads all of them without making a mistake, she gets a prize. And that's got Megan tugging at my shirt sleeve when I get home at night to play the reading game. And Megan's teacher has cottoned on to gamification. Each child in the class, Megan's in French immersion, each child in the class has their own flower on the wall with 5 petals. And each day that you don't get caught speaking English, you get to color in one of the petals. And if you color all 5 in during the week, you win a prize. And that's got the kids doing their utmost to speak French in class. So I think that kind of speaks to the definition of turning an activity into a game to make it fun. I think those are great examples of very sort of everyday life gamified tasks. And I think they can help us get people to do things that they otherwise wouldn't necessarily be interested in doing. So that's kind of what the definition of gamification is, but what's in it for us as trainers? And I guess I kind of broke it into 4 key areas. I think gamification can be used to entice people to participate in our programs. It can then be used to get people engaged and keep them engaged in the program. And through that engagement and repeated engagement, we can drive retention of the messaging you're trying to teach. And lastly, because most gamification programs are going to be, gamified training programs are going to be distributed via the web, we have some great opportunities for tracking and evaluation that might not otherwise be available in other solutions. So I think the entice, engage, retain, and evaluate are 4 key areas where gamification can really help us drive results. So that first piece, getting people enticed, I guess we kind of broke it down into 3 tactics that we can use to get people to entice to participate. And one is offer them the ability to play. The other is competition. And lastly, if we offer them the ability to win something, those become pretty compelling value propositions because they're focused on what's in it for the recipient of the training, for the employee. And I think those are high value things. So I think the play piece can be very enticing. I guess just think about it from an employee's perspective. If you're told that you need to go on course to take some new training. If you're busy at work, you're a little bit bummed about that because you see it as just a distraction from the things that you really need to get done, and it's just going to put you further behind. If you're not busy at work, maybe you're happy to get out of the day-to-day and take some training, but those might not be the right reasons. You're really just happy to get out of your job for the day. So I think games, though, really provide a significant enticement. You can see from the graphics on the board, Monopoly, Trivial Pursuit, TV game shows, old computer games, and then into mobile games like, Angry Birds and Plants vs. Zombies. We're seeing that games aren't just for teenagers in their parents' basements anymore. Everybody loves to play, and they love to play forever. And so I think if you can turn your training into a game, it essentially turns work into fun and makes people much more willing to participate in training programs and excited to do so. So I think leveraging the whole play thing can really entice people to participate in your training programs. The next one is competition, and I guess this one's neat because it kind of people are inherently competitive. They like challenges, they like feedback on how they're doing, and they like to compete against friends, colleagues, and I think offering them the ability to do so through training can be pretty fun. I think there's a couple of different ways to do it. You can do it with leaderboards that track people's scores. You can keep people enticed to continue playing by sending out daily and weekly leader announcements to let people know who's leading and prompt people to go in and try to improve their scores to beat their colleagues. And it's the kind of stuff that generates a little bit of chatter around the water cooler. People like to brag to their friends that they're doing better than they are, or about their new top score and so forth. And I think if we can get people, you leverage competition to get people excited to participate in talking about your programs, that's a big step up from traditional training. I guess the third tactic is offering up the ability to win something. The fact is, everybody loves free stuff and everybody loves to win. And typically in a training situation, you're training smaller groups of people. And I mean that as opposed to like the consumer promotions that we run that get hundreds of thousands of participants. In a training environment, we're typically not training that many people. And so everyone can believe they actually have a chance to win. And that can make prizing even more enticing because you really believe you got a shot at winning something. I don't think those prizes have to be super valuable. The client programs that we've run typically don't have super expensive prizing. Things as simple as inexpensive gift cards, dinner for two with your spouse, a free day off. These types of things can really entice people to participate. We can also leverage internal rewards. You may have existing reward programs where we can give people points from internal systems that you have, or rewards that you already that you're already running for your company. So there's a lot of different ways that we can access prizing and use that as sort of an additional lure to get people enticed to take our training programs. I think prizing also works towards that sort of competitive nature where people can brag about the prizing they won, and also serves to create a little bit of buzz. People win something, like to tell people that they won something, and that gets other people excited to participate in the training program. So it's got a little bit of a halo effect as well. So prizing, I think, can be a really effective way to entice people and sort of push your gamified training program right over the top. I guess the next thing is, getting people and keeping people engaged. And over the years developing gamified training programs, we've seen three tactics that really kind of emerge as the leaders. And one is progress, and the other is virtual rewards, and the last is surprise and delight. Let's dig into those a little bit to see how they can help us. So a really effective tactic of keeping people engaged is progress. And I think, people like to feel like they're actually getting somewhere, like they're making progress, like they're improving. And like a real world example, I'm a guitar player, and I find if I'm learning a new song, I'm highly motivated to play my guitar. Because each time I play that song, I get a little bit better. I work out some of the kinks, and with each rendition, it gets a bit better, and I'm highly motivated to keep working to make it perfect. And so when I'm learning a new song, I play my guitar an awful lot, admittedly to the point of driving my family crazy. But when I'm not learning a song, frankly, I'm not as motivated to play. I don't pick up my guitar nearly as much because I'm not making progress. There's nothing pulling me towards that guitar. So I think that's where progress can really keep people motivated. You see that I've got on the screen here an auto racing game, and I think these games do a great job of leveraging progress. And for starters, there's a map up in the top left corner that shows you your progress and where you are on the track, so that's good. But it's really through playing the game that you really experience progress as a gamification tactic that gets you addicted. So in the first lap, you wipe out at every corner because you're not all that good at virtually driving. And by the end of the first lap, you might make a corner or two. In the second lap, you work out a few of those kinks. You get a little better in some of the corners, and some of them you're making it through. By the 10th lap, you're whipping around corners, and it's pretty fun. And now you're racing against the clock because you're trying to improve that time. And that's where you really start to feel how progress can get you engaged, keep you engaged, make you motivated to click play again, even make you addicted to this particular game. And I think leveraging that type of tactic, we can really drive engagement with our training programs. And I should mention that progress can be depicted in a lot of different ways. You saw on the first screen, I was driving along in the country and during the day, and now in this screen I'm driving through a nighttime cityscape, and it's the change of scenery. It's all the different visual stimulus. I could be taking the same corners and the same track, but because all of the stimulus around my car is different, it's highly engaging, and I think I'm sort of engaged in something new. So that's another way to show progress. Another way in the context of a car game is, I could get a new fancier car, or better tires, or an engine with more horsepower. All these things keep me motivated because I want to try out these new things I've gotten, and I'm making progress. So I think progress is a really powerful one that shouldn't be overlooked when trying to gamify your training programs. Another tactic for getting people engaged and keeping them engaged is trophies and badges, which they kind of leverage people's desire to collect. And people love collecting things: stamps, coins, ducks. I say ducks because a friend of mine's mom had a duck on absolutely everything in her house. But I mean, people love to collect, and I think that's what you're leveraging. Boy Scouts like to collect badges on their stripes on their shirts. When you make up the high school football team, you get a jersey with a big logo that serves as a badge, and so those badges serve as a lure to get you motivated to complete something. But they also serve as sort of bragging rights or recognition that you actually did complete something. And so I think these can be very powerful tactics. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Nike Run app. But this is a great application for your mobile phone, and I'm a runner, so a friend of mine at the office told me I should get it, and that it uses GPS through my iPhone to track where I run and how fast I run and so on and so forth. Well, so I put the app on my phone, and I went for a run, and unfortunately I found out that I wasn't nearly as fast as I thought I would be. But on my third run, at the end of the run, a little ding came up, and it told me that I'd run my fastest mile, and for having done so, it gave me a little trophy that, wasn't anything. It was just a little digital asset that would get hidden in the trophy case, probably never to be seen again by me or anyone else. But the next time I went for a run, I found myself pushing just that little bit harder because I wanted to beat that time, and I wanted to improve that trophy and or maybe earn another one. And I think it's that kind of thing. It's the power of that kind of thing. That exemplifies the power. Kind of a funny story about that. I then told one of my colleagues here at work, AJ, about the app because he was starting to run, and I said, you got to get this. It's really amazing. And so he downloaded the app and went running and had the same experience, as he broke records and so on and so forth. He was really having a lot of fun, and told me it was really motivating him to run. And then, his kid is on the cross-country running team, and he said, Dad, can I borrow your phone? I want to see how fast I'm running and everything. Sure, go take it. And same experience for the kid out there running, breaking all the records and so forth. He's so fast he broke all the records. Well, the sad thing was when AJ went to run again, he could not keep up with his son, so he couldn't break any of these records. So it became pretty disappointing, and consequently, AJ hasn't run in about a month. But all that to say, collection and trophies and badges can be really, really great incentives, even though they're nothing. They're little digital currency, essentially, but they can really motivate people and keep them engaged. So the last tactic is surprise and delight. And the developers in the game development world, they call these Easter eggs. Everybody loves a surprise, unless, of course, it's a punch in the face. Nobody's a big fan of that. But what I'm talking about is something unexpected that happens randomly within a game. Think of the daily double on Jeopardy. People get all excited because there's you double your points for the specific question. And in our gamified training programs, they can be as simple as, the 20th visitor of the day has a chance to instantly win something. Or a funny video pops up when you've completed a certain level. Or a new character appears in a role-playing game. All these little things that the person didn't expect when they were playing, but it just happens randomly. And what that tactic does is it gets people talking. Gets people talking around that water cooler. Hey, did you see this thing that popped up in the game? You wouldn't believe what happened to me when I was taking the game. So it prompts people. It'll prompt new people to get interested in the program, but it'll also prompt existing players and existing participants to dig deeper to find all of those Easter eggs or surprise and delight things within the game because they want to see what they are. It's kind of a novel thing, and it keeps people digging a little bit deeper. So that tactic has worked really well for us in some of the programs that we've built out. So in addition to enticing people to participate in our programs and keeping people highly engaged and sort of leaning forward, we've seen that gamification tactics can help us drive retention. So retention is one of the bigger challenges that we have as trainers. Our clients are always telling us that higher retention is one of the key goals. So the challenge is, how do we get people to actually learn stuff instead of just regurgitating the information? How do we make sure they retain it? And I guess, I was a corporate trainer for a while, and in instructor-led training, the problem was that if you had a really good instructor, people would learn quite effectively. But if your instructor was A, not a good instructor, or B, just having a bad day, you would see that people weren't as engaged, and therefore retention was lower. Average scores in instructor-led training would go from 40 to 50 to 60th percentile at best. And I think, that's where gamification can help us, where we can leverage tactics and put them into these gamified modules that we build that are the same every time. A piece of software doesn't generally have an off day. And I think one of the key differences is, using those tactics to keep people engaged. People will continue to engage with the programs and to improve their scores and get better and leverage all those things like competition and badges and so forth to cause that repetition, which actually ensures they retain. And I think one of the sort of telltale signs is that nobody ever clicks play again on an instructor-led training course, but they do an awful lot on a gamified program. In fact, clients' programs that we've run, you see 40, 50, sometimes 60 gameplays per user. In fact, clients have called us to say, you need to limit the number of games people can play in a day because they're training too much. And the end result of that, where retention is concerned, is we've seen average scores of 80, 90% in follow-up quizzes. So I think that it's this repetition, and it's leveraging all of the tactics that we've talked about that drive that repetition. The end result is we get higher levels of retention, which ultimately is what we're trying to do as trainers. This next screen I have up here speaks to retention because it's a great little tactic. I'm sure you've all played Angry Birds. And I've talked to my friends about this. I played the game, and lots of friends did. You can see here I've got 1 star because if I complete the level, then I get a star. If I complete it really well, I get 2 stars, and if I just rock it, I get 3. Well, almost everybody I've talked to said, yeah, I went through Angry Birds the first time and got 1 or 2 stars, but I needed to get that 3rd star. And so I went back and I played and I played and I played for hours to make sure that I got all 3 stars on all of the levels. Well, that's an awful lot of repetition. And it's leveraging people's need to perfect things, people's need to get that perfect score. And I think that type of gamification tactic can motivate people to play again and again and again. And what that does is drive that retention you're looking for. So I think perfection and these sort of like digital assets that you can use to display perfection can really drive retention in ways that other training programs just simply can't. So through this next couple of minutes, I'm just going to show you a couple of gamified training programs in action. I thought you might like to see some real examples. So this first program is a gamified training module we built for Dell, Microsoft, and Intel. And specifically, they wanted to train their sales and support staff about their enterprise products and services. So in Dell's case, it would be the hardware, and Microsoft the software, and Intel the chips. And so we built this tower defense game. And if you look at the grid in the background there, that's the game board. And you can see that there are all these icons moving along the white line that sort of weaves its way across the game board. In the bottom right corner, you can see that there's a couple little guys with helmets. One says traffic and the other says virus. And those are the tasks or threats that these servers are handling. And the way the servers handle them is they shoot little balls at them and they hit them. And so for each task they handle or threat they mitigate, you earn money. But if those tasks or threats make it all the way across that maze and out the back door, then you lose money. So to start the game, you might have, $5,000, and what you need to do is go into the panel to build your data center, and that's located at the thing you see at the bottom left. And so in the beginning, you have to pick your servers. You have to pick which software would be best suited to the type of company, because the software will tell you what type of tasks it's better at handling, and then you have to choose which chips you can afford. And you have to do that within a budget. So then you play around, and by successfully completing a round, you've earned a bunch of money, and then you have to go in and upgrade your data center again, because the threats and the tasks get more powerful with each round, and you need to have correspondingly upgrade your data center. So while you're playing this game, you're learning about the value propositions of Dell, Microsoft, and Intel's offerings. In fact, you're getting into the minutia of it because you have to in order to successfully complete each level. So this, the average employee at the three different companies played this over 40 times. It was so successful, in fact, that we rolled it out for their clients and prospects to play, because it was a really addictive and fun game. And so we rolled it out, and we found that clients and prospects played the heck out of the game as well. So the whole time they were learning about the client's offerings and how it can help them in protecting and building their data centers. So this is a great example of how to use sort of a classic tower defense game, but nesting all the key messaging in so that people learn while they play. They almost learn despite themselves. So I thought this one was kind of a cool example. This next one is sort of fictitious. We dreamt it up, and we have client confidentiality things to which we need to adhere. So there's only so much sort of client work I can show you. So what we did was we dreamed this one up, and we imagined that we were Ford and that we needed to train our sales reps on how to sell Ford vehicles actually in dealerships. So here's an example of kind of a quiz game, and you can see the question on the left-hand side. What navigation system does the Ford F-150 come with? And at the bottom of that screen, you can see click here to find answer. So I would click on that button, and it would take me to the specific page on the Ford website, or maybe a page on their intranet site if it's a new car that wouldn't be public yet. And within there, I can go to this page that's got the interior of the F-150, and I can click on any area of the car to find a little more information. And by doing that, I find out it's the Serious Travel link. I come back and answer the question. So kind of a neat little way, but it's just a simple quiz question. We can make that a little more enticing by putting a timer on, putting scores in there so that it lets you know how you're doing. So those little gamification tactics can make this quiz game a little bit more engaging. But now imagine if that quiz question was just one of 25 questions within a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style module. And so what I need to do is I need to correctly answer 25 questions in a row without making a mistake, or I have to start over. And my motivation, that's leveraging that perfection that we talked about with Angry Birds, the need to perfect something. It's leveraging progress, and it's keeping people engaged. So I'm motivated to answer those questions correctly because I want to successfully move up the ladder and answer all of them correctly without making a mistake, so I can maximize my points or maximize my game score. So you're starting to see now that that question becomes a lot more relevant when put within sort of a game module. Well, now take it up one more level. So sorry for the graphic. We just drew this up because, again, this is something we dreamt up. But I'm a salesperson in a showroom, and I can pick on any of the people in the showroom to try to sell them a car. And you can see the woman with number 7. So I go in and in the virtual showroom, and I pick number 7 so that I can try to sell her a car. So once I'd selected the person I wanted to sell to, this young woman, I would then ask her some questions so I can learn a little bit about her, so I know what car might appeal to her. And through asking those questions, let's say I learned that she's a younger woman and she's just came to town to go to college, and she lives about 5 miles from the school and needs a car to get there. Well, through those questions, I know that she doesn't need an SUV or a minivan. She doesn't have kids and stuff, and I know that she needs something that's fuel efficient because she's a student. So I know that probably the best car for her would be the Ford Flex. The trouble is, I've only unlocked the F-150, and I unlocked it by doing that module with the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire round. So because that's the only module I've done, I haven't unlocked the Ford Flex, so I can't sell that to her. So what I need to do now is go back and take whatever gamified module we'd have dreamt up for the Ford Flex, so I unlock that within this virtual game so that I can see if the Ford Flex would be of interest to her. So once I've completed the Flex module, then I can offer the Flex, and I can explain things about the Flex to this woman, and then boom, she wants the demo drive, which Ford knows when we finally get people into the car, the odds of selling them that car go up significantly. So throughout the game, in order to be successful and compete against my other colleagues in the Ford sales force, I need to take all of the training about all the vehicles so I'm well equipped for whomever might come into that virtual showroom, and I can sell them whichever car. But I need intimate knowledge about each of those vehicles so that when I choose that person, I have all the right knowledge, and I know how, and I've unlocked the necessary modules so that I can sell them the right car for them. And I think that's an example of how gamified training can be as simple as a quiz game, as engaging as something more like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style module, or something as all-encompassing as sort of a virtual alternate reality in which you use those skills to progress at your job. And so I think we thought this was a kind of a neat example of how you could use gamification to sell cars for Ford. So to briefly recap, where we've seen great results in helping our clients improve training results with gamification is first in getting people enticed to participate in the programs. Second, in getting people engaged and keeping them engaged and driving that sort of longer period engagement and repeat plays, which in turn leads to retention, because repetition is one of the better ways to drive messaging home and make sure it's retained. And then lastly, giving the ability to evaluate, because it's web-driven, being able to evaluate where people are strong and where they're weak. So I think those are the big examples where gamification can help. Now, there are a couple of questions that have come in. I'll read the first one. Have you built training programs that are mobile accessible, and if yes, how are the results been? Great question. Yeah, in the last couple of years, we've run a number of programs that are both web and mobile accessible, and we have seen that people are engaging on their mobile devices, and sometimes even outside of work hours, which is kind of cool. We get people maybe waiting for their kids at baseball practice or music lessons or so forth, waiting for a bus, whatever. But if the game's good enough and it's fun enough, people are actually engaging outside of work hours, which is great. That's not to say that mobile is taking over from the web or anything. The numbers are still quite a bit smaller for mobile engagement, but we are seeing it grow, and I think that's a result of the line between work and life is being blurred by the ubiquity of smart devices. So yeah. And then the next one is, do you have any comparative results between non-gamified and gamified training programs? So good question. As I mentioned, when I was a corporate trainer, we would regularly see sort of follow-up testing would get, 40, 50, 60th percentile. And that's really the only experience I have with non-gamified programs. And I can say that the gamified programs we've created have gotten 80 and 90% follow-up scores. So, quite a bit more retention. I guess the telltale test is feedback that we get from employees of at our clients' companies, and that is overwhelmingly positive. They're thankful that the company has tried to create an experience that's a little more fun. They particularly are grateful when they have the ability to win a prize. So I think the feedback is overwhelmingly positive, and people ask us, can every other training program be delivered in this way? So I think there's really a significant boost in people's interest and fun level and so forth, which I think in turn helps drive results and retention so that our programs are effective. So thank you very much to everybody. You'll notice I threw my email address and my phone number on the screen. Always happy to chat about gamified initiatives if you're looking for ideas or just want to chat about how you might gamify your existing stuff. Please feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. I'm happy to chat anytime. So thank you very much. Hope you all have a great day.